Hey everybody, Bill in Virginia. And this week I'm going to be working on the backdrop junkyard scene. So, like in the last video, I've got an HO scale building that I've put on the foam core board for background. This one's not put in place yet, I've just kind of got it setting there. So what I'm going to start to do is I've got a photocopy already made of this part of the building. I've been cutting strips. I'm going to put a roof in of corrugated metal just to finish that off. I've got a bunch of fencing, and what I'm going to do is a combination. I'm going to use some of this fencing for areas along the side of the building and then coming up to there. Now, this piece is a continuation of the coal yard scene. So I've got the coal yard is in this area here. I'm going to have more of this fence, and on some of these, you can see they've got gates. So I'm going to have it where the fence is near the edge, coming over, and then where the trucks would come out on the other side, I'm going to have a gate kind of opening up in this way. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take scraps of the foam core board and I'm going to gradually kind of build it up into some piles and some odd shapes all around in here. And then I'm going to use stuff to make a junkyard looking area. You know, a drive that goes through, but then scrap piles along here, maybe a few little scrap piles poking up on the other side of the fence here. That should be kind of interesting. I think it's going to turn out fairly well. This fence kit also has like the post and rail type fencing. I'm going to paint it up, and then I'm going to see if some of that would look good just sort of on the edge in here, or maybe up closer to the back, again as a little bit of a break from the foreground to the background. So should have some fun as I move along on this project here. So let's see what kind of mischief I can get into. Well, and like on the other backdrop builds, some cuts off that photocopy, a little white glue, and I've got a roof. Turns out pretty well. You know, it matches the building because it's part of the building. So for this flat, this one's done. I can mount it and I can start doing something different. So about an hour and a half later, and I've painted the fencing, and I put that in here, and actually I think that works pretty well. I glued it in a couple of spots, so that one's good. Coming over this way, again, fencing has been painted. I've glued it in, added a little more ground cover around it. The building is put on permanently. And then coming up over here, more fence, again painted, glued into position. And now what I'm doing is I am starting to build up the background for the junkyard area. So I've got a couple of witness marks right down here. This is where the traffic will go through from the coal yard. So I wanted to leave a space, and then what I'm going to do is, with the fencing I've already painted, I'm going to come in and I'm going to put it in and glue it to the backdrop, sort of like that, and on both sides. And I've got more fence available to do that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back in and I'm going to look through my junk box. I'm going to come up with odds and ends of different things, and then I'm going to put white glue on these once I actually glue them permanently in place, and create an illusion of a junkyard in the back here with odds and ends kind of coming up over the fence in a couple of different areas, and an open area in the fence where you can kind of see junk on the ground and different things like that. So we'll see how effective it is once I get it done. So making headway, I went on Google and I downloaded a couple of pictures of scrap yards, did a quick cut and paste. So I've got some scrap over the fence on that one. Did the same over here where I took a picture cut it and put it in towards the back, just a low pile, just looking through the entry there. Then what I've been doing is I've been taking paper towels and covering the foam board core that I build up for the scrap piles. Been adding dilute white glue on the paper towels. Now I'm going to let them dry. You can see some of the rust color on the edge. I was just kind of playing with some rust-colored ground foam that you use for fall-colored trees, just kind of give it an effect. But what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to let the glue dry. The fence is just set there. I used it just to make sure that my paper towels had the right shape so that they can support the fence. A little later, once I actually glue it on, and then I've still got a piece to do over here on the left just to kind of fill in that gap. I've also been taking some scrap metal, some of the stuff left over from my N-scale Quonset hut build, and just kind of cut them up into pieces after I spray painted them with a dull silver. So now I've got a mix of dull and shiny, just depends upon the way the pile fell. Once everything is good over there, I will glue these in. And then a little later tonight, I am going to paint up these scenic details, industrial junk, just to kind of add as well. This was from that eBay purchase that I showed on the previous video. So probably it'll be tomorrow, Sunday sometime, before I get the scrapyard, I wouldn't call it done, but where I want it to be. And then I'll put this back over on the layout and see how it looks. Well, this backdrop is pretty well finished. Little fence is there, showed that a little while ago, coming across. Scrapyard area is pretty well done. You know, I'll probably add some figures and maybe just put a vehicle kind of parked there. Coming across, that area is looking good. And then I do have the bottom area where the scrap piles are located. I got the Woodland Scenics industrial junk painted up. I've got some shredded metal that I showed earlier in place. I've got some of the rusty, like fall foliage, just kind of look like rust piles. And a variety of just other odds and ends. It's all held in place with either full-strength glue, which I used as a base coat to kind of dump stuff, and then I've used dilute white glue to kind of pour on top of everything. So right now I just need to let it sit overnight and dry, and then I will put it on the layout and we'll take a look. We'll see how it looks. All right, got the backdrop in place. So you can see the post and rail fence way over in the distance. Swinging it around, you can see the scrap metal yard right next to the coal company. See their fence, the shared parking lot. I'll move some vehicles around a little bit over there once I get all squared away here. Kind of walking it down a little bit. You can see the fence and the scrap pile up near the building. And then you can see the fence and the junk piles down in the lower part. Now you can see the seam on this one from this angle. So what I think I'm going to do is I will park a vehicle or something that just sort of hides it. Maybe move that pickup truck a little bit. So if I can see a little bit of the seam, that's okay. But moving the pickup truck a little bit should hide most of it. So let's take a look at that. So after a couple of back and forths, I've moved the pickup truck where it hides most of the gap that was still there. You can still see the gap in the fence, so you can look into the junkyard. I like it. I think that's going to work. So I'm calling that part of the backdrop done. So on to something else. But first, let's run some trains. So let's do a little rail fanning. But let's do it from the perspective of the conductor sitting in the cupola of the caboose. And we'll follow this little RS unit as it traverses through the layout and see what the conductor sees.